When I started working on my first Steam game, I had no idea that the genre I chose for my project would stop me from kickstarting my career as a full-time game developer. Not only is choosing the right genre the best way to get visibility on Steam, but it also completely cripples your chance of going full-time if you waste too much time on a game that just won't work for Steam players. So in this video, you're going to find out exactly how to do genre research for your next project, how it can impact your wishlist and sales, and if you watch until the end, you'll be ready to really begin the journey to game dev success before even opening up Unity. To start, I have some questions for you, and you need to be really honest here. For the game you're working on right now, did you consider what audience the genre of your game has when you started? Did you only choose that genre because you were really interested in it? Were you inspired by a game that was super popular and thought that if that game did well, then maybe some fraction of that game's audience will be attracted to yours? I know I pretty much did all of these things, and in fact, when I published my Steam page, after marketing my game for several months, I was really disappointed that the wishlist numbers just weren't adding up, no matter what I did. To release a game on Steam and have it do well, it's generally suggested to have at least 5 to 10,000 wishlists. I have 600. I thought this must just be the fate of most indie developers, and that this is just how it is. As it turns out, there's a very fundamental reason for this, and it has to do with the very basic law of marketing that indie developers absolutely need to understand. Allow me to explain. The basic principle I'm talking about that I'm sure you've heard of is called supply and demand. Supply simply means how much of a certain product there is available. For us game devs, this means the supply of a certain genre, or specifically a certain tag on all of Steam. Demand means how much the market wants a certain product. Again, for us, this means how much are Steam players interested in games with a specific genre or tag. So the best genre of game to make is one that has little competition and that Steam players love. Now, you might be wondering, that's great and all, but how am I supposed to know which genre of game all of the Steam players are more likely to want to buy? Well, there's a website called VG Insights where you can break down every genre on Steam and see what the median revenue for that genre is. Median revenue just means out of the list of all the games in that genre on Steam, the game in the very middle made that much money. Forget the average because it's heavily skewed by a handful of AAA games that make millions. As you can see from this chart, the genres that make more money are generally also made far less often, and the difference is even more striking when looking at subgenres. Subgenre data unfortunately isn't available without a subscription, but there's a lot that you can get out of this just using the free version. And the single most common genre that indie devs make, the 2D platformer, literally makes almost no money. What does this tell us? Don't create a Celeste or Will You Snail clone expecting that your game will attract their fans, because those players already have games made by much more experienced developers to choose from. And I know that sounds harsh, and if you're making a puzzle platformer, I don't want to discourage you. Later on in the video, I'll explain why I think you should release your game anyway. And one thing that worries me more than anything is that there are so many devlogs out there of indies making their dream game that they've been working on already for over a year. You probably watched these devlogs and maybe thought this was the way to go for you. I know I fell into this trap too, and it was a great learning experience, but I could have fast-tracked my career by now had I focused on learning what Steam players are most likely to want. By the way, the reason why these YouTubers make these big dream games is because they have an audience that they put in the time and effort of building, providing them with value over a long period of time. That audience will guarantee a massive bump to their wish list. Steam will reward you if you can bring an audience. But if you're watching this video, that probably means that that isn't you. Yet. But now, if all that isn't good enough of a reason for you to do genre research before starting your next project, what I'm about to show you definitely will be. We talked before on my channel about meeting Steam players' expectations, and a Steam player generally knows what an indie game smells like, if you know what I mean. If you're trying to make a AAA game at an indie scale, like I did when I tried to make a Thief clone, which, by the way, had some insane feats of technology for its time that are still hard to do today, your end result will really suffer for it, and your players, you know, the people you're literally serving with these games, will know, and they'll feel it. Compare the old version of Air Obscure with Tanks But No Tanks, for example. One is clearly a mess of mismatched visuals and messy animations, while the other one, despite being so simple, is visually cohesive, clean, and looks professional. Now, I'm by no means a big YouTuber, but if you take a look at what my game looks like now and think it's worth trying, I'd really appreciate if you wishlisted it. Feel free to tell me the name of your Steam game, and I'll give you some personal feedback in the comments. Speaking of comparing games, you can also compare different specific Steam tags directly and see how they compare when paired up with another tag. Again, with the free version, you can only do this with the main genre and not the subgenre or tags, but even that will make a huge difference because you're beginning to incorporate the mentality of supply and demand. What you should look for when comparing tags is, what is the median revenue for that tag? Are you willing to make that much money off your project? What is the median revenue for other tags? And what happens when you add a second tag to that tag? Don't add more than 3 or 4 at most, as more tags can start to skew results. Also, if you can select these options to make sure you only search for self-published indie games that made at least $1 and less than some reasonable cap, say $200,000 or less, just to make the data more similar similar to your current situation. Compare your desired tag to all Steam games, so no tag filtered, puzzle platformer as a low-end metric, and turn-based or city builder as a high-end metric, and see where your desired genre falls in between them. But okay, what if you still have a big passion project that you love and really want to finish? I don't want to discourage you with this, I just want to save you potentially months of wasted time. If you want to make your dream game and don't care about the money, then go for it, and I wish you all the best, have fun. But if you do care about the money and doing this as a career, then finish your puzzle platformer anyway, or whatever you're working on, but do it quickly. If you're making something more like an open world first-person shooter, then find the one thing that you really love about the game, like the story or the combat, and strip it down to just that and release it after the next Steam Next Fest. You will definitely learn a lot, and your next game will almost certainly do far better. And to really make the most of the tag analytics you'll be using for your next game, you'll have to also consider other factors like how feasible will this game actually be for me to make in a reasonable time frame. To make sure you don't overscope your next project, you really need to watch this video and learn from my mistakes so that you can make the most of your next game's release. Please wish this to Air Obscura on Steam, and thank you so much for watching. God bless.